There's new Chrome available, so that might be the reason why.
That's what it said. iOS not supported.
Right, is that what it is? You not got the newest version, maybe?
Must be.
Anyway, we're recording, so let's give us a bash, mate. I appreciate it. Thank you for the changes of the days. And welcome to another episode of the Sour Up for What podcast, talking your Houston Texans straight from the Great British Isles. We're just having a bit of a chuckle because we're having 101 technical difficulties. Planned obsolescence, I believe they call it, Gareth, when Apple and Steve Jobs, God rest his soul, but he planned it well. And the older your device gets, the make you try and buy a new one. I wanted to buy a new football team if I had the money, or invest in a new football team emotionally, because I don't have the money for a laptop for our football team. But on Thursday night, that was some of the shittiest football I can remember for a long time. I woke because it was on late, right? But it was on an hour earlier because our clocks went back over here, right? So I went to bed. I always think if I sleep through it, I sleep through it. That's what it is. But I woke up. I just turned the TV on as Joe Mixon was entering the end zone, and yeah, it was kind of downhill from that moment. Really, there was I thought there was one moment which I hadn't seen until actually Friday when I watched it back, um, where we fumbled the ball and then Will Anderson got injured on the next play, and actually I think that's kind of set off the bad stuff. But have you recovered yet? Because that was definitely the worst one of last season and maybe of this season and last for me, probably.
Much like yourself, I wouldn't even stay up because I'm up early anyway for work, so I wouldn't stay up for the match. But when I watched it back the next day, I was just like, I was in shock, to be honest with you. Like we talked a couple of weeks ago about the O line, about trying to fix it when they had that break, if you know what I mean. And I think it's gone backwards. Like that was the worst I've ever seen. I'm watching a wee bit about Kenyon Green there as well there today actually, and oh, I what do you do with him? Like I know there's talking about pulling him out, but like what can you do? I'm not saying it's all his fault. What happened?
No,
Like
I
obviously
think
the Diggs, what happened with Diggs, and then like we're
yeah.
down to Woods, Dale. You know what I mean? It's not really ideal without Nico Collins, is it?
No, and I think injury or fate has potentially set us off in a better direction now. They said it wasn't good enough. They benched him, and then they still put him out there on Thursday. And I just thought you're just playing with fire here. And there was a couple of times I didn't think CJ was going to get up, and the, Quentin Nelson was just thinking this. Is, sorry, Quentin Williams was just thinking the easiest day of his career. And I think there was an element, or there was the play that Joe Mixon took it into the sort of 11-yard line or into that red zone situation just before the fumble. Kenyon should have been
Yeah.
taken off that play because he was clear he wasn't. He gets absolutely bulldozed, almost falls back, like his back almost lands first, sort of thing. Completely knocked off balance. His hand position, his footwork is all off, and it just looked like he wasn't ready to play, and he's gradually got worse. And I think actually, when you looked at his rookie year, he gradually got worse. I don't think we'll ever see him again, and it's unfortunate. I think the coaching staff have got to take a big share of the blame because I think there was a player there, but players that get hurt in their rookie year, which he did, or missed time, and then missed all of his second year. When you miss time early as a young player, it's really hard to make that up. And I think we've seen a guy who was a questionable talent. Obviously, the pick will always be compared to Kyle Hamilton and Jordan Davis, and it's a sad one. It's one of the Deshaun picks that we should have really hit on because there was enough talent there um, to take somebody good or trade back in the second round like we did this year. Because I think that's a far more fortuitous strategy in the draft and a sweet spot. And I think as drafts are getting thinner of top end talent, NIL and all that stuff. I think
Yeah.
trying to replace that's going to be a difficult one. But I suppose he's gone now, guy. I think there's probably we won't waste any more time on it. There was a series of games where the O line got worse and worse and worse and worse. But I suppose my question to you is, can they fix that in season?
Well, what I read there was that Lyle Collins from Cowboys. They brought him in to train or to practice, didn't they? there
Well,
yesterday.
a workout, I think. I don't think they've signed him, and then they signed two guys to the practice squad. So it looks like we're going to roll with the guys we've got.
But who do you bring in? Like, who comes in? Do you know what I mean? Like, I actually thought the Collins would have been a great move. Maybe put him the tackle and put Howard in the guard. I thought that would have been a great move, to be honest with you. Like, Collins was the starter for the Cowboys, for how many years? For a
He's
few
not on a
years,
team
like.
now for a reason, I suppose. He
But
went to Cincinnati and didn't
that's.
play well.
But then, like the same with Devin White. You know what I mean? Devin White wasn't getting playing at Philly, and now he's come in. And I actually think you can see he's a bit overweight, to be honest with you. Speaking from me, like, but I think he can add something to it. I still think Collins could have added something. But like we talked about a few minutes ago, like, you know what I mean? Like, who do we have? Fisher, like another rookie coming in. Would you rather have a bit of experience or a rookie coming in? But
Well, yeah, I think
what do you do?
it'll be Jared Patterson if he passes the concussion protocol, which you think he would by a week's time.
But do you rate
Then
him?
you slot him in.
That's what I mean. Like,
I think he's good in pass protection, and I think he's probably he's probably less of a run defender. But at this stage, we're I suppose I just can't fathom in my head how you go from last year being a poor run blocking team to a great and a decent pass blocking team to this year the complete opposite. But it's because the internal three guys aren't working together. Because ultimately, 9 times out of 10, your two tackles are going to be in an island, and it's got to be up to the three guys in the middle to kind of work it out. And and there was a play actually. I think it was the one where CG got sacked the second time. And I've looked over at Juice Scruggs, and he's out double teaming it with Shaq Mason and leaving, and was leaving the the final chapters of Kenyon Green to get bulldozed again by a sort of top end, top 5 DT pick in Williams. So yeah, I think Patterson will come in, or and Ken Drake Green did some good things, but look, it's going to have to get better. I suppose I hope with the time off that they've had enough to sit there. And I listened to D'Amico today talking about how they sort of do it in 4-game increments of self-scouting, and this sort of long weekend is giving them a chance to find out what do they do well, what do they don't do well, and how do they mix up their tendencies. And it's going to have to get fixed. You're going to get your quarterback injured, and and then our season goes from one that's potentially fading or has some issues that may hold you back from the stuff you wanted to try and achieve this year, to a season where you're playing pointless games because you're either out of the running or you're not got a chance to win against good teams, of which there are a few to be played. So I think if it was me, and I think you either play Titus at right tackle or you start Eric Fisher. Not Eric Fisher.
didn't agree.
I've forgotten.
Didn't
No,
agree.
sorry. His name's not Eric. There was about the fact that, anyway, Fisher.
Yeah, Eric Fisher. Yeah.
Yeah, at right tackle. And you have to either work out the centre and the left guard spot, and you probably leave Shaq Mason alone because it is what it is at this stage. I think he's inconsistent, but he's not been quite as bad as some of the others. So I think it's up to solving the centre and the left guard spot. And I suppose when I think about last season, prior to Jared Patterson getting injured in Carolina, where he just unluckily got rolled up on the back of his legs, he was playing great centre, but he played a lot of snaps in Notre Dame's guard. So I think he's the safest bet, and I suppose continuity is perhaps the biggest way to get it fixed. But it's a strange dichotomy. I heard D'Amico's quote there saying every year's different, and every team's different, and every season's different for every club, and that's true because there's just so many variables at play. But it's a perplexing one, Gareth. I think we will have to get fixed because that's the first time I've seen CJ miss easy throws and look dejected and be slow to get up and just not do the things that I suppose you probably take for granted that he can do and make you successful. But there was guys multiple times who'll get criticism for not catching the ball, but were open. And he just didn't have the time to get it off. And it's not as if like he's got a slow throwing motion to get the ball out. But I suppose the cost of the offensive line is not just in the lost plays or the stalled drives. It's in the health of your prize asset. And I suppose there can't be any stone unturned, or I hope there hasn't been any stone unturned to now until Sunday to get it fixed.
You seen like even the start of the season, like there's a few games they were standing in the pocket and he was taking the hits and making the pass. Like it's 9 games of what being sacked, what 5, 6, 7, 8 times. So it's like
Yeah, I mean,
9 games
eight's a
of
joke.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, do you know what I mean? That's what I mean. Like
yeah, yeah.
9 games of that happening. Like it would take its toll on anybody, especially at that level. Do you know what I mean? You imagine what you're talking about in Norway, 20 stone men coming running at you, full pace. Do you know what I mean? He doesn't even have time to think. It's that bad. The O line is that bad. Uh, like if he's injured, goes back to Deshaun Watson a few years ago when he was injured. Like where does the team go? What do we do? Is there any point in bringing Nico Collins back if CJ Stroud gets injured this weekend or next weekend because of the O line? There's no point in bringing
Yeah,
him back any quicker.
yeah, yeah.
Like
I
let's
think
be
I
honest, the
suppose
season's
it.
done.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. I
If
mean, as soon as he misses time, if he misses, multiple games, we were lucky last year. We won a game in Tennessee after him getting injured in New York, and he almost did it again 2 years in a row. So I think it, it's a tough conundrum, but it's one they have to solve, and that whether that's been by leaving extra men to protect it pretty much on every passing down, and you become a 15 to 20 pass play max offense, and you just got to run the ball and hope Joe Mixon and whoever else can do that. And I
I
suppose
thought,
it puts a lot of pressure on Mixon, and it put a lot of pressure on Kemi Fairburn. One of them continued to deliver, one of them failed. Um, we missed, we fumbled in the 11-yard line, missed 2 field goals on top of that. That's 9 points at a minimum. It would have got you within touching distance, even after a couple of crazy catches. But it was just a strange game. I know that can happen on a Thursday night game, but I suppose from the pass protection viewpoint, that wasn't just that. It's been a number of weeks and it's got steadily worse. The Green Bay thought that would be the worst of it. They said it had to get fixed. It was bad against the Colts, and it was the worst it's been on Thursday there. So I don't know what the way forward is.
did you think, but on Thursday night that they were kind of like we were talking about the easy stunts beating them? That did you think they were too? Like I thought they were concentrating too much on stunts, whereas you're saying double teaming and that and worrying about stuff like that, rather than just worrying about the man. If you mean it, kind of looked to me as if they were worried because everybody had been talking about it that they were getting beat by that. It looked as if they were worrying too much about stunts rather than worrying the man in front of them. Do you know what I mean? That's the way it seemed to me. That's why they
Yeah,
were.
no, it's it's communication, and I think ultimately, if the three guys in the middle communicate well, um, that's easy. But everybody knows any sport they've played. If you're not confident or you're not playing well, your communication is one of the first things that goes right. So, I don't think Kenyon Green's ever been at a level where I mean, because don't get me wrong, he played a lot of tackle in college, and and he was, and guard. But he got by as being the athlete he was. But I think that was always the knock on him, that he just didn't love football enough. And I think that's sort of evident now because he's just never learned from his mistakes, and it doesn't even need to. It's not even necessarily mistakes. It's just oversetting issues like that. But anyway, I suppose I think it is communication between the three, and if those three can communicate well, which there was examples of that in both drives that Patterson had come in, they were some of the best drives of the season. And the best drive of the season was of the game, which was actually at over 100 yards because there was a penalty negated it for the Mixon touchdown. That was when Kendrick Green came in, and actually they looked like they were handling stuff. And then towards the end, when they were throwing it, I know they were only rushing 4, but it was about 5 or 6 plays where CG had time right at the death. He just couldn't quite find a receiver because we're dropping 7, so it's difficult when teams do that with our offense. But yeah, it was the worst performance, I think, of the even CG's first couple of rookie games where we lost. The last time we've lost 2 games in a row since D'Amico. Something's got to change, and I thought it may be a mix of personnel, and injuries will help us with that. I thought there may be some coaching changes, and I don't think an offensive coordinator change is out the question. I don't think that'll happen. I think D'Amico's been loyal and will continue to be loyal to Bobby Slowick, but it's not been good enough. It's not been good enough schematically. It's not been good enough consistently in terms of execution for the players know what to do. And it's not been good enough. They've been out coached. And I think that's something I suppose that D'Amico has to face. And one, himself, and two, his coaching staff, Gareth, that second halves were ineffective every single game this season. apart from New England, and that's the only outlier. Everything else has been the same, and it feels like we get out adjusted and outmaneuvered second half by defensive coordinators every week. And until that changes, we're not going to win the games we might be able to with the talent we've got.
Do you think it's maybe a second season thing with Slowick, to be honest with you? Like last year, like everybody was praising him. Sure, he was in for head coaching jobs in the off season.
Yeah.
Do you think people, like, because the league is picking up so quickly and everything, do you think they've just figured him out? Like you said, first half, teams are just queuing and everything he's wanting to do, and he's not having enough variation coming into the second half to change things up. Like, I think we're relying too much on Mixon, to be honest with you. Whereas last year, I think we were more about. Obviously, we didn't have the running with Pearson out there, but I think we're relying too much on Mixon, and I think teams are knowing that as well. I know it was his run was his snap count down, actually, was it on Thursday? Mixon's, I think I seen something like that, was it?
Well, I mean, even when JJ Taylor came into the game, they kept running it well, because that's the thing. You've traded away Cam Akers, which you could have done with him at times. That seemed a bit naive. Damian Pierce, the injury report's just come out as we're speaking here. He's back on the injury report again with a groin. A non-participant today. So he's had minor issues that have been consistent with health. So then you've got JJ Taylor in there, and then you're over reliant on Mixon. So I feel like that's been mismanaged a little bit, and in the same way that the passing game versus the running game is never been able. They've never been able to get a sink in it. And I suppose what we were doing last year, was despite not being able to run it, still managed to play action. Now you're running it well, and you can't play action. So I think it's just getting that balance. So don't get me wrong, there's a lot of bad execution up front that's just killing it, right? So it doesn't matter what he calls. There's been some times where there's been great play calls, and Thursday included, dialed up, and it's just not been executed because people have just missed their assignments up front in the trenches, and that is where games are won and lost, because if you can't get the snap off, or you can't get the throw off because your pass protection isn't set, or picks up five rushers, five blockers, hat on a hat, as they say. If you don't get that, it's all academic. And I suppose the lack of functionality of the passing game must then impact how he calls later plays, because I suppose that the key to this sort of West Coast offense is they run similar plays but out of different looks. And I don't think he's had enough successful passes or drives pieced together to then mix those looks up. And I think we've gone very tight in the line of scrimmage. There's lots of bunches, static releases. There's we have a continuation of last year whereby this offense goes okay against zone coverage, but as soon as man coverage comes up, that's where we start to struggle a little bit. Teams are playing a lot of too high coverage as well, and it's difficult. I mean, the whole league's playing like that. Defenses generally are getting the better of offenses around the league, but you've got to innovate and find ways to do it. Now, I think can he do it? Yeah, it's just, will he do it in time before our season can maybe kind of drift away from us? But I think second sophomore slump, I think is the phrase.
But I think another thing I think we need to actually think about is Nico Collins with injury. Like, I think he's papered off over a lot of cracks in the first few games. Like,
big time.
So he has. Now Diggs is out. Like, Tank Dell, fair enough, he's actually came good the last couple of games compared to what we were saying, but he stepped up. But I think I don't even think the game plan's around Nico Collins. I just think he is that good a player that he's getting open, and Stroud is, well, obviously he's confident in what he's doing, that he just throws out to him. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of catches he's made that have been contested catches. Like, a big body Collins just gets it. So what you're saying there about Slowick, I don't even think the catches that Collins had been making, like the first 4 or 5 games, that were like drawn up them kind of plays, because a few of them were busted coverage, if you remember there a few weeks ago.
A lot of them, yeah, and that was bailing us out constantly, yeah. So without that, so, and then it looks even worse, yeah.
It does, like, really worse, like. But no, I can't see him getting rid of Slowick, to be honest with you. I don't.
But I mean, that trick play where Mixon's just got to run it, and probably run it in behind Stroud instead of throwing it straight after. I just thought, this isn't working. And don't get me wrong, you can some of the time off might just give a bit of reflection, a bit of direction from others. I think is maybe what needed, and perhaps it's been a bit, because I think that's the thing, right? You've got a grand motivator and a sort of person, a people person. And don't get me wrong, and I heard Gary Kubiak talking with Andrew Johnson and Jonathan Joseph on that podcast that was then sharing the Texans network about, don't let the smile fool you. And with D'Amico, and I do think he's got a hard edge to him, but I think he's probably been too. He's not managed the offense enough, and at points I think you need to step in and say, look, here's the three things you need to do. I don't care how you get there, but these are the three things I want to see. Otherwise, we're going to have to make a change, because you've got Jared Johnson there as the quarterback's coach, and I don't know if you saw where it cut to them, and him and CJ were talking on the bench, and they both had a body language of as if and look, you're reading into it, right? But my first thought was those two are speaking and saying, we could do this better our way. And that was just kind of the impression I got of that image. And you can see how certain images like D'Amico not shaking hands with Aaron Rodgers, even though there was pictures of him doing it, and it cuts up, and it can be very perceptive and very kind of, small looking through the keyhole stuff. But I just thought when you looked at the two of them, they both looked pissed off. They both looked as if they felt like this shouldn't be this way, was kind of how the look had got it, because we've all been there, right? So I don't know. If Sunday is an absolute shit show and they don't even score, say 6 points, do you think it could come then? Would that be enough to trigger it? Maybe, because it's going to have to get really bad. I mean, it was bad on Thursday, but if it gets really bad, because that is well within the realms of possibility. I hope the hell not. But would something like that trigger it? Maybe, do you think?
I don't think it would, because as you said, D'Amico is very loyal to his staff, and he brought him in specifically from San Fran for that there. Like, so do you really think he's going to get rid of him 10 games in? I personally don't think he would, no matter what way it goes. I'm just trying to I know it's not good. I know we're sitting here saying it's not good, but last season we were saying how the defense wasn't good and the offense was good, and now we're saying the defense is good and the offense
changes quickly this league, doesn't
it? As you were saying, but that's what I'm saying. Like, we're going on here as if like it's so bad, but we're still top of the division. You know what I mean? We're still game ahead, 2 games ahead.
Yeah, I suppose I keep thinking to myself, we shouldn't let the fact that we're in a bad division mask our deficiencies of many things. I think we've got this team's got 2 fatal flaws, in my opinion, Gareth. Is the pass protection up front, which I think is fixable, and then another one is coverage from the safeties and linebackers and nickel spot, and I think it's Jalen Petry's fine when he's facing downhill, but him, Eric Murray, etc., just won't cut it. And if I was an offensive coordinator, you'd be looking to exploit their matchups as many times as you can. So those, I think, you can mask them to a degree, but you can't necessarily cover them in their entirety. And I think those two, they will catch us out more than once before it's all done. I just hope we can find a way to coach this up a bit better and at least make a fist of it coming for Detroit on Sunday Night Football, because everybody's going to be watching, and you've just put out a terrible performance, and and the bit actually that concerned me was, I heard D'Amico say today, well, they have shown they can put a good performance in against Chicago. They did that. I don't agree with that. I don't think that was a particularly good performance. So are they kidding themselves that the problems aren't as bad as what because they've won? I don't know, but maybe this week was enough to self-evaluate, I hope.
But we've been, during mentioning the coverage there, we've been talking about that for weeks. Like, as I said to you a few weeks ago, like, I think our pace, like our speed of our DBs, safety is non-existent. I don't think it's there. We always seem to get beat on like corner routes or goal routes, or do you know what I mean, slants. It's all easy stuff that seems like we're getting beat on compared to other teams. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm not watching other teams as much, but I think we just need a bit more speed and pace further back in the field to cover across like I think if Akuda's back now, I think he's back. Is he this week? He said. I don't know how many snaps he get, but I think it will make a big difference because he has the pace and the speed to keep up with most people. But
Well,
no,
he's been a much maligned player, but I think he could give you an option whereby you could potentially put Lassiter inside on certain downs. Third down man coverage looks or something, and then play Akuda outside on the boundary and give him a safety over the top and let Lassiter kind of, because he did a lot of that at college in Georgia. He was a nickel corner for a lot, and that was the question: was he just a nickel or was he an outside corner? And he didn't have a great game on Thursday, even though I thought he had his best game the week before. So, this league is variable. But I think him coming back, I think Al Shazier coming back this week. And I just hope Will Anderson plays, because I suppose the defense looked poor in the second half. They were able to run the ball. It was then able to set up their pass game better. And that was the catalyst for them to get some rhythm in the passing game, which we didn't, because the first half, the team looked really good. I thought they continued, that was Aaron Rodgers' least passing yards in his career in the first half. So it looked good at times. And the defense has looked good. It's just looked shaky on the back end. But the biggest strength of it was gap integrity, which is D'Amico's number one thing. And I think you'll get better with that with Al Shazier coming back, because he's got the green dot. He's calling out the plays. He's setting people up in alignment. And I hope Will's ankle, which I think was a bit of friendly fire, somebody rolling up on him, because the defense did not look as good. And I suppose it makes you question how good and bad that defense is without him. And then actually it makes you question about Donnell Hunter when it was all on him. He didn't really show up. So yeah, I think we've got a lot to improve this week. And I suppose do you think Will Anderson is that important? Is it one of those guys that you only notice how good he is when he's not there?
I personally, I do think yes. I think everybody knew he was going to be good, but I didn't think he'd be as big a cornerstone for the team as he is. Especially just going into a second season. Jerry Hughes, I think when he's back, I think he will help a lot for a rotational kind of guy. So well, because I think he's good at the run. So it is more than a pass rusher, I think. But I think Hunter feeds off Anderson, whereas Anderson feeds off Hunter, because rather than having O-line having to worry about one star rusher, they have to worry about two. That's why I think Grenard and him were so good last year, because they're the two guys to worry about. So it is rather than one, like, yourself, if they only have one man, if Hunter, once Anderson went off, if that O-line has only Hunter to worry about, really, as a pass rusher, like, they're going to just concentrate on the one man. Whereas Anderson and Hunter are both working in tandem. I think that's what it comes from. So I think Anderson is a cornerstone for our defense now. And I think the pick, which was maybe questioned at the time, I think it's been put to bed. Like, you can see from everything he's doing, he's brought his college quickness, I think, into the NFL. Plus, he's bulked up. It looks as if he's bulked up a hell of a lot now the second season, and he hasn't lost any of his twitch, so he hasn't lost his get off or nothing. So I think he will be a cornerstone. I think we will miss him if he's not ready to go on Sunday.
Yeah, because I think if you look at the injury report, you've got Derek Barnett, who hasn't really done that much. He's calf and shoulder complaints. He did not practice today. You had Jimmy Ward return as well on the back end. So I think, they were practicing, him and Al Shazier were back at practice prior to the trip to New York. So you got to think they'll be good to go, even though they were limited. And then Farid Kassi was a DNP designation as well, as was Dylan Horton, who's kind of been slowly being worked back in there. But Jerry Hughes did return, at a grand old age of 36, I think he is now. But at times last year and the year prior, he showed that he still had the little flashes here and there. So they've brought him back off IR. You only get 8 spots. They've used one of them on him, so there's either an injury concern there, or they think he's still got something to offer. I would think it's probably the former, rather than the latter being the main driver there. So yeah, I think there's going to have to be some big performances somewhere on this defense, because against quarterbacks who are rhythm play action passers, as and all quarterbacks need a rhythm, right? But I think Jared Goff's one of those ones that if you can get internal pressure, he's not the most mobile. You're going to have to do that to disrupt their passing game. Now, a lot of people haven't done it to him, because this is probably the best defensive line in the league. So this is probably the opposite of our reality. So it's going to have to be the best defensive performance of the season. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Khalil Davis was traded yesterday. Talking about defense, that seemed a kind of a weird one. What did you think of that? Firstly, because for
Actually, when
me,
it
he's
came,
got more value for you on your squad than a 7th round pick in 2 years' time.
that's exactly my thought. Like he was getting plenty of reps as well, so I was thinking 7th rounder 2026. What's the thinking behind it? Or is that like like a wee help? I need a bit of help here to form our team, if you know what I mean, to send them over that way. Do that kind of way, is it?
I think maybe just a numbers game with Hughes coming back. There was going to have to be a cut, and they thought we may as well. It was maybe fine margins between him and one other guy, and they thought, well, if we can get someone for him, we'll take it. Seems a weird one. It really does, but Wednesday's not a great day, I suppose, to judge people's health, and we're kind of a day later. We were kind of expected to make a trade, though. Do you think, or would you have liked to seen them have made a trade, or would for some of the specific, or do you think one of the trades that did happen, you would have happy paid the price that perhaps could have helped the squad right now?
Personally, I don't think there's much value in trading this time of the season, to be honest with you. I'd rather keep the picks especially with wages and that coming up, or cap. I think we're better keeping the picks for that. But like, what was Shaq Mason? What was he, a 6th round or 7th rounder? We got him in.
Yeah.
Could we not get a guard in, like a guard in for maybe a 6th or 7th round next year or the year after? That would be my only thing I would have thought about doing. Trying to think through the team. Devin White, I think, came in. I think he'd be good, which we were talking about, linebacker. And with Collins coming back, and Diggs' injury, I don't think we needed another wide receiver, even though a lot of people were calling out for it. I didn't think we did. And to be honest with you, the forgotten man, Robert Woods, I actually thought he'd done well. So that's why, like, we have strength and depth, I think, and wide receiver. So I wouldn't have brought anybody in there. There's no other positions
Yeah.
we need. Like, there's no other positions where you think, yes, definitely need there. Let's go out and give a 5th round or a 4th round pick something to give out. Personally, I
Yeah.
don't think it is. And the
I
names
would
that
have
were
I would have
touted,
given a fifth. I would have given a fifth for Hopkins. If you
would
could
you
think
brought
of
it back?
well, he scored 2 touchdowns. I know he's playing Mahomes, right? But if you
Yeah,
think our issues are against man coverage, that'll be a lot of the time. A red zone weapon, and he actually does quite well in the slot, and you can put him in inside and out. I think he probably, I don't know if very few teams have won it 3 times in a row, right? So it might just be the law of averages may hinder him from a ring this year, maybe the year after he gets one if he's in Kansas City. But I don't know. I just think that I would have probably, and again, it's nostalgia talking, but like if you look at the way Clowney's playing, just for an extra guy up front to give you a bit of versatility because he can play inside and out, versus say the Derek Barnett's and the Jerry Hughes of the world, would he have given you more? Maybe apparently Carolina weren't willing to trade him. I don't know if it was necessarily to us, but I was listening to something out in the Athletic today. Would have traded for a corner? No. Probably would have gone for a safety at some point. I know I think Justin Simmons was the one that maybe was perhaps a misgiving of not signing in. I think he's done reasonably well in Atlanta, but I'm not really seen a huge amount of them. So I think there's if there was a guard available at this time of the season, it's because his contract is not is dwindling, and you're basically given a pick for 6 games. But then I suppose when you look at our recent record in 5th, 6th round, probably toe-to-toe is probably the only one that that's given you, and maybe Patterson this weekend, is giving you any meaningful snaps. So it's cannon fodder at the end of the day, but I suppose it comes down to availability and teams willing to do business. So I'm assuming they would have tried, but yeah, I think as this because I think this cap situation is going to become quite tight. Not necessarily next year, but the next 2 years. So, your window is now, the way this team's built is now in next year, and maybe that 3rd year, and after that, you're going to have to be hellishly lucky on draft picks for your roster to continue to have that talent injection at the bottom end and young cheap players. So picks will become a premium, but yeah, I think if you go through the history of the league, how many great pickups have there been at the trade deadline? Not that many, but can you can you find value in these ones? Probably, but the value is probably more likely we had, like, the Mixon one in the off season where you bring them in because you want to re-sign them rather than potentially, teams wanting players out and they're just happy to. Because I think if you look at all the players that went apart from Lattimore to Washington, I think they were just kind of teams were happy to move on for them.
Yeah, totally agree. Like even Deontay Johnson, like obviously Carolina didn't like that at all. They just wanted to get him away, or maybe he just wanted it away. Do you know what I mean? The Hopkins, I never actually thought of that, but maybe him and Clowney, they burnt bridges. Do you know what I mean? There's stuff behind the scenes because there was talk of him coming back before he went to Tennessee as well.
Yeah, different
Do you know
regime,
what I
I
mean?
suppose now, isn't it? But because Nick wasn't here with either of those guys, right enough. But yeah, I get possibly, you never know. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's just two names that you kind of know,
Yeah.
and I think would probably still have somewhere to live here, and probably would settle quite quickly. And like, don't get me wrong, there's nostalgia, and there's always a cliche: you should never go back. So it's one of those. It's one of those. I think that there wasn't enough quality talent there, or they would have parted with the price if they felt it was reasonable. I think that would help us right now. But to bring somebody into your system, particularly at guard, is difficult. You need people. I think the biggest reason why this whole line's not good is because they didn't have enough off season together. Because both Titus and Tunsil missed significant time, and Kenyon Green was recovering as well from previous ailments, and so I think that they haven't played enough together. So when you're trying to bring somebody in and bring them in, the Darius passed away now, sadly, but forget the name. Is it Darius Thomas that came in from Denver that one season when Will Fuller went down? He did reasonably well for a while, and then he tore it, and then again in that fucking turf and I think it was a Sunday night game or a Christmas flex game, and then he tore his Achilles when we were doing quite well, and then that just kind of seemed like it killed our chances towards the end of the year as well. So yeah, that turf's got a lot of answer for him. I don't think we go there next year, so that's certainly a positive. But I suppose is Detroit a bridge too far for this team with all the issues we've just kind of outlined? Is probably the league's form team. Whether that means they'll win the Super Bowl, that's a different matter altogether, because it's the team who's playing the best January, February that win it. But this is probably our toughest test, without doubt. I think our toughest test. But is even running this game close a bridge too far for this team based on all the issues we've seen that have flared up, particularly in the last 3 or 4 weeks?
I think what we've seen from us in the last 3 or 4 weeks, where we see where we're at, if you know what I mean, we're not contenders in my eyes. We're division champion. That's the standard we are.
We're a t-shirt and hat team.
Yes. Whereas, but Detroit have came from where we were, and look where they are now. They're maybe a season ahead of us, possibly, but they've hit on a lot of draft picks. But go back to it, me just ramble. We'll go back to what you're saying. Detroit, I think, are contenders, and we're not. We're kind of pretenders, kind of thing. So we are. So they are the standard where we should be aiming for now, because on all sides of the ball they're brilliant. As you're saying, their O line is their block and pass protect and run is second to none in my eyes. Like Penny Sewell, Frank Ragnow, isn't it? Center.
Yeah. No, I mean it's the
two.
best line in the league, I think. And you see some of the way in which they handle stuff they throw at them. It's just it's well drilled and awareness and communication. It's just something
100%. So they're able to run the ball, they're able to pass the ball. I don't think the wide receivers are as talented as ours. Their QB definitely isn't as talented as ours. So I think it's down, like you said, to scheme and O line. If we throw the Lions and their scheme into ours, we're a formidable team in my eyes. I'm not even talking about wide receiver players or QB, just their whole line. If you swap them out, what would be the difference in the two teams?
Yeah, I think Ben Johnson should have and could have taken a coaching job, came back for another year, and he's definitely coming and looking to, I suppose, make a stand. He came back to win a Super Bowl, I suppose, this year, didn't he, Johnson?
Just about to say, does that not tell you everything you want to know about Detroit's offense when he had a pick of jobs and came back for one more season, more or less, to win the ring?
Yeah, yeah, and I suppose don't get me wrong. I'm in Rasa Brown and Jameson Williams on the day. I mean, that's two ideal skill sets. One that stretch the field, the one to beat most DBs were out running. So I think the and I suppose Liam McNeil got a big contract there, and he's probably one of the best. If he's probably up there with Quentin Williams' standard of rushers. And I suppose the one that got away will be there as well. One of my favourite Texans players of all time, DJ Reader, Grave Dave to his friends. That was probably one of our biggest mistakes. Obviously, that was in the dysfunctional era, but I think when you see the career he's gone on to have, he'll be there as well. So it'll be a reminder of our past, and it's going to be a real formidable challenge. I suppose it's almost difficult to talk about how you can attack them because everything needs to be transformational, less so on the defense, but on the offensive side of the ball from the last 3 or 4 weeks, this is going to have to look a world apart where we're from just to stay competitive. Because I suppose the issue earlier in the season was because we didn't score enough points. So I think when we go and play a shootout game, we're not going to be able to hang teams because they'll just gradually drift away from us because we're kicking field goals rather than sevens. And then our pass protection is just eroded to the point where you can't even kick field goals. So, this has got the potential to be a blowout. Now, I hope somewhere, not with my head, but illogically, we can find some level of performance and proficiency on offense that will make this a game one for everybody watching, because we didn't do that on Thursday night. And we've got to go Monday Night Football without that Prescott, which is a slice of good fortune that may peel us out the ship based on some of the issues we've had. But it's going to have to be so transformational on offense just to make this watchable. It seems too much of a bridge, but this league throws up mental shit every week, so who's to say it won't?
Do you think the extra break has maybe helped him? Maybe they have tweaked the wee things. Maybe that's what he's been alluding to. Do you know what I mean? A few extra days could make a difference, but I don't think there's going to be that big a schematic change. They couldn't do it. Obviously the way they're playing has been worked on all pre-season, on the off-season, should I say. So there's not going to be major changes. There can't be major changes. Maybe some personnel changes on the offense. As we're saying, on the line, can really help out. Like we've been talking about, Stroud that extra second to give him just a wee bit more confidence can make a hell of a difference. Nico Collins back, if he has been training. I don't know, has he been training? I'm not too sure.
Not today, he wasn't. No.
Well, that's kind of painting the picture, isn't it, if he's not training today?
Yeah, well, today's a walkthrough. I think Friday's a walkthrough. Thursday's the big day, so I think we'll be able to judge it then. Right. But I think we're going to be very reliant on Nico. If Nico Collins doesn't come back, I think it's as simple as you don't even have a chance in this game offensively. I think it's based on what we've seen. There's 9 games worth to suggest that. I think that's fair, particularly with Stephon Diggs, which is a blow. And never seeing all 3 of those guys play together well, and that may never happen now in the same way. I was thinking about that the other day. It's a bit like when we had Merciless, Clowney, and Watt, and the 3 of them never really got going together. And actually, you need the luck of health and form to collide at the same time that talent can give you the output that you perhaps expect. And it just seems like a bit of another hard luck story there. Or when Will Fuller got injured in 2018, when we looked like a team that could maybe upset somebody in the playoffs and stuff like that. So, every team gets injuries. They've got Aiden Hutchinson, their best pass rusher, out. They've traded for a guy who's a decent rusher, but, Cleveland were happy to see him go for a late round pick and a low cap hit. So, we'll see. But I think, if there's no Nico, it's going to be a tough watch. But you never know. I hope there's maybe something that can be brought out by the spirit of the battle red jerseys, perhaps on their first outing. I'm not a fan of that red color, if I'm honest. I like the old one better, the deeper red. But yeah, wow, your top will probably make that a bit more of an obvious one. But yeah, no, I like the darker sort of old battle red. I think this has actually got a new name. Is it still called? I think it's still called a battle red. But
yep, they are.
Yeah, it could be a bloodbath either way. I think I just hope it's. I hope we don't embarrass ourselves, because I think there's nothing to suggest that we wouldn't do otherwise based on the last 4 games. But stranger things have happened.
Do we need that shock? But are we do we need the shock of going out and getting hammered by a team to put us in reality rather than
I don't think it could be
thinking
any
we should
worse
be
functionally than Thursday. I don't think Thursday you can't get worse than that functionally. I don't think. So if you and that was getting beat off a team that weren't, okay, they've got some good aspects, and talent.
But
Would that change anything? No, I don't know. Maybe it would make change. I suppose. I don't think it'll make us a better football team straight away. It might make some change, which then in turn over time or a number of weeks might make us a better team gradually. But yeah, it's a tough one because it's an NFC game, right? So you can afford to lose it in the AFC race. That is the reality of it. Now we've done that in every game we've played so far in the NFC. So maybe the Dallas game's a bit more winnable now, where they just seem to be imploding and making trades for guys that's a bit weird and overpaying. Yeah. So they kind of seem in a mess. So it feels like that's maybe set up to be a get right game in a couple of weeks. We've never won there. But I suppose if you win both, then your season's all you're cooking with gas again. If you go 1-1 the next two games, and you're kind of in a similar position you are now, you're sort of questionable. And I think that's the most likely outcome unless something goes. But I keep thinking back to last year, Gareth. I don't know if you remember this, but Kansas City didn't play all that well. They won a lot of games, but they didn't play that well. And then all of a sudden, their offensive line just kicked into gear the last 5-6 weeks of the season. They ran that right through the playoffs and then didn't look back. So there's precedent for it. They've invested as well and got some good picks and trained them well and being consistent. But something's going to have to click into gear beyond sort of scramble plays to Nico Collins and because last year I think that the short sharp passes wasn't a consistent element, but the deep ball to stretch the field to Nico or Tank was consistent. So it's almost like if you could even bring that back, because like they showed that on Thursday night, there was that big bomb to Tank. They should shoot it. I think that was the drive where they missed the field goal. We have to find something that's going to give us an edge that other teams can't do. And it might be that because we've seen them do that in the past. But yes, there's a lot in there really, and it's a weird. It feels like you're in a weird position, 6-3. You should be delighted with that, but when you look at the actual deeper context, it's not that simple, is it?
I think you're living in hope by saying about the Kansas and the O line. I don't think it's going to happen with ours. Personally, I don't think it's going to happen. But there you're sitting there 6-3. Like even start of last season, if we had said we're going to be 6-3, top of the division, what would you have said? Take it all day long. Are we aiming too high? Like we're only 2 years in. Like we're not as if we're 3-4 years down the line on this project. Like we're 2 years.
Well, do you know what? For me, there's a bit that I thought if you ever get to Super Bowl, if you look at the venues of the next Super Bowls, New Orleans is the only one I want to go to because all these new stadiums in California are all built in the arse end of nowhere. It's not really the same experience. So there's a little bit in that, to be honest. I think that drives a lot of my thoughts because I thought it'll be impossible not to go. It won't be good for the health or life or bank balance or anything like that. But I thought if you're going to get one, it's a close drive to Houston. You take a huge fan base, and it would just be, something. I think, it just seems illogical or a distant hope, I suppose. But if we lose on Sunday, where does that leave us?
I wouldn't have put this game down as a win in the start of the season anyway, so I don't think it leaves us anywhere. If you know what I mean, we're not any worse off. I would have put the Jets down as a win, seeing how they've been playing. Dallas, the way they're playing, I put them down as a win. So out of this block of 3, plus the Indy game, obviously, put in the 4. Like if we come out 2-2, I would have been happy at the start of the season, seeing that there. Do you know what I mean? If we'd have put them in the blocks and that was one of the blocks, I would have been happy with 2-2 coming out of them 4 games. Like I'm sure a lot of people would. But it's performance we're talking about here. It's how we're playing. If we are 2-2 and have played well and scored points and was close, we'd be talking differently than 2-2 the way we played against the Jets, even against Indy, and going into the Detroit and the Dallas games. I think it's all down to performance, how we're looking at these things. If we're playing well and it's 2-2, we're happy.
Because we've got Tennessee twice, who have got good defense, by the way. So there's no guarantee. Not a lot of teams do go 6-0 in the division. I think it's very rare, isn't it? Even by so I mean, I think I think it's fair to assume you can only win 2 of those 3. So that gets you to 8. I think 11's the magic number. Depending where Miami are, that's 9. That means you've got to then win in Dallas if you don't win Sunday night to get to 10, and then that means you're trying to get a result against Kansas City or Baltimore, which I think at this stage seems unlikely as well. So it's unlikely, and maybe then it's 6-0 in the division, and the division is that bad that it gets you to 11. Because I think that's where you want to get to. And look, 10-7 might just be the reality of this team based on the schedule, based on where we are, based on the issues. And but I suppose I'd like to see it just gain form and actually be better to watch as the season goes on. Look, I would quite happily take a valiant defeat on Sunday. That you look functional on offense, and you go blow for blow with the best team in the NFC right now, and it gives you momentum to take in other games. I think for me that's probably the best outcome that you can. If we win, and you shock everybody, will be cock a hoop, but I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case. So I think for me, a good outcome Sunday is just give a good account of yourself where you look functional. You don't lose the game, you just get beat by a better team, and I think that'd be a first for the season. But I would take that now because I think that would show progress despite not winning.
Would you be more happy us going out and having a gunslinging showdown and getting beat by 3-4 points, or would you rather we go out and win and play in the way we have been playing and scrapping the win? Do you know what I mean? Would you rather see going into the Dallas game and going forward? Would you rather see us playing better?
Obviously, in an ideal world, if we
informative?
win the game 9-6, and it's just a field goal fest, defenses win out. And then we finally get our form against a sort of underhand Cowboys. Yeah, I take that. But I just think they'll score that many points just because they have done. They've continued to do. You're going to have to. It's going to have to be an end. It's going to have to be a shootout for it to. That's the most likely outcome. I think they either blow us out or a shootout. I can't see a defensive masterclass leads the way or wins the day outcome. But yeah, it's a tough. I believe it's great to be on Sunday Night Football. It's not the best for watching it. We'll see where we get to on that, but watching it live anyway, because nothing worse if you've not seen it and you see the score and then you've got to try and piece it all together. Because I didn't realize that the fumble was in the red zone pretty much until Friday. So you miss all this. You miss all these little bits when you're not watching it live. So it's we're in a decent spot, but I would prefer that we were in a spot where at least I felt like I knew what we are. Because I think even the bad teams that only win 3 games to get the first overall draft pick, they still go out and play 2 or 3 games a season where they don't make a lot of mistakes and they give a good account of themselves and actually win those 2 or 3 games because they play well. We've not done that yet. So, it's got to be looking up because that was always been the case of what will we look like when we play well. But until we sort out basic execution errors, till we sort out being out coached, because by law of averages, you're going to get the best of some people sometimes. Then we'll have a good view. But I suppose the view of this team, the identity of this team, is just so incomplete right now. It's been a funny old season, but I don't think we're alone in that. And I think the league's kind of in that kind of space generally. Situational football and things with the new collective bargaining agreement, I think it's in the worst place it's ever been. I think the quality of the league is probably in a worse place it's ever been. If you think about 10, 12 years ago when I first started watching, the overall standard is definitely down because they want more points and they want all that kind of stuff. So it's systematic and we're just a part of it. But it's an odd spot. But I'll still take it from where we've been. That's all. You've got to enjoy what other good times last. This is still a good time, despite it being hellishly frustrating because it just, with small tweaks here and there, fix all things that are fixable, we could be looking a lot better and a lot more stylish with our approach on offense.
Maybe it's just a wee tweak here and there that is what we need. Maybe it's like you're saying, is it like a wee coaching change here, a wee schematic change there, or a wee offensive coordinator coming in, and just everything just clicks and away we go. Yeah, I agree. Like one, you're just every game we're watching, we're waiting for just that wee spark, aren't we? Just to ignite something and just to go and say, that's what we're talking about there. That's what we're looking for. Just one spark. I think our defense has come on leaps and bounds compared to last year. So it's just the offense. It just needs that wee tweak, I think, to get everyone going. I think we have the personnel to do it. It's just whether we have
Yeah.
the coaching there to show them what to do.
Yeah, I think it's just a disappointment in a number of players and a lack of consistency across the board. With the tight ends not being there, with Brevin Jordan going down, with the big three wide receivers not all necessarily clicking and playing and getting a good share of targets in a high volume passing game. As you said, you've just never seen that play where you thought, right, that sparks 3 or 4 consecutive drives and you blow past teams and they might come back into a later stage, but where you really kind of look like you've put your foot on the throttle, and we've never quite got out of second, maybe third gear at best at times, and then we've always taken regressive step back, mostly due to coaching and schematic tweaks and changes on the opposing side of the field. So yeah, let's see. I've got no hope for Sunday, if I'm being honest. There's only 3 points in it with the bookmakers, so it was at 3.5 maybe. So it's not, and that may be more respect to the record than anything else. But we shall see. Well, let's hope we're sitting here on Monday talking about the great unexpected. But any final thoughts before we shoot here, Gav?
No, just like we're saying there, I would actually, if we are going to beat, I hope the performance is better if we get beat. But equally, I'll be happy if we scrape a win, just to have another win under our belt. So either or, if we perform to like how we should and how I feel we could, I'd be happy if we're getting beat. But if it's a blowout and we're still performing, that's when we sit down and think, right, needs to be changes. So it does, but
Yeah.
I'm not, like I said to you, I never even put this down as a win to go at the start of the season. Maybe more looking towards the Dallas game and going forward after that compared to this. So it's all about performance to me. This I'm not really concerned about the result because I wouldn't have thought we were on the same level as Detroit coming into the season. To be honest with you, no matter how
Yeah.
we had played. So this was kind of down as a loss to me. And then we go on. It's all about performance and see if we, even though we tweak here and there to see if the O lines can be a wee bit better, and then see how schematically we can be going forward.
Yeah, that's it. I think let's see progress in terms of consistency and quality of output on the offense, and then I think that's progress in itself, regardless of the result. But we're going to need one of those games. If I think if 11's the aim, and it should be, because 10 you're kind of you might not get a home tie in the first. Well, I suppose we'll get a home tie if we win the division at 10 games, but might not get the seed you want, I suppose. But that's all academics, one stage at a time. It's a good place to be. It could be a lot better, and I think we're all hoping for that. Because then this team can realise its potential, because there's nothing worse than a team that doesn't rely on its potential and stuff that could be fixed, that's not fixed. And there's a difference between having a talented team and an untalented team, and an untalented team overachieving and a talented team underachieving. I think to this point, halfway through the season, that's been the case. But the trade deadline has been and gone. We've not added. We've traded a couple of guys out for late round picks. So there might be an eye slightly on the future, and maybe that's in their thinking a little bit. You never know. And maybe next season's the one where they go all 2-footed with the cap and picks and all that kind of stuff. And that may just be the reality we're in, because there's too many flaws. But we shall see. That's why we play the games. That's why you listen. I hope this is not too repetitive, because they have been repetitive issues for this team. But we can only talk about what goes out on the field there. So thank you again for listening to Turn Up For What podcast, talking to your Houston Texans straight from the Great British Isles. And here's to perhaps a good performance on Sunday, and we'll be back next week to work it through a wee bit. Thanks again for listening.